So here we are today with a guest joining us from Richmond, Virginia. And she has a book out, which I like to say the title of. It's called Determined Destination, which I like that. Life's imperfect journey of learning and love. So hello, Rita Miller. Welcome.
Thank you, and good morning to both of you.
Welcome. So happy to have you here. And thanks for your patience and our long wait list for interviews.
That's a good thing, right?
It
It
is a good thing.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
It's a very good thing. So we'll just dig in and tell us, your story from the onset and how you would like to tell it.
All right. So I think I'd like to start at my first foster situation, the little bit that I can remember. I was probably around the age of 4, and I remember being at a home with an older couple. The woman of the house, I'm not going to identify her as mother, but the woman who was responsible for me was a stay-at-home individual, and the husband worked. What was interesting about that situation was I was not allowed to really interact with other people, other kids. The gentleman or the husband, I really, now that I'm an adult and understand body language and, how people react to things, I don't think he was interested in me being in that home at all for any reason. He and I we never ever talked to one another. We had no relationship with one another. So I was basically there, as I learned later, and we'll probably get into that, as a companion for her. The next door, go ahead.
Can I quickly ask,
Sure.
where was this? Like, where were you born?
I was born in Richmond. I've been in Richmond my entire life. So everything I tell you will be about Richmond, Virginia.
And were you in foster care from birth until 4, and then this is kind of your first memory? Is that sort of how that worked?
From what I could gather from some information I received from the Department of Social Services, I think my birth mother tried to take care of me until I was about 6 months old, and then made the decision to give me up to social services. Of course, I would never, well, I don't know the reason. I'm not going to say I won't never know the reason, but I don't know the reason for that. And so my first real memory is in this home. So obviously I was in other foster homes prior to now, or to that time. And I remember there was a family who lived next door to that home that had lots of kids my age. As a matter of fact, when I got to high school, one of the boys who lived next door to me ended up being in my graduating class.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you remembered each other?
Remembered each other, yeah, from back at 4 years old.
Were you allowed to interact with him?
That's
like
what I
you
was going to
said?
ask.
Yeah.
As a kid, no. I just knew this family, but anytime I would, she would allow me to go outside, it was basically to play alone. And if I was to interact with the kids next door, she would, pull me back in the house, because for whatever reason, she did not want me to have any kind of relationship, or just do what kids do, play.
It's so lonely.
It was very lonely. And I remember starting school at that home. And I ended up going back to that school, but we'll get into that in a minute.
And you were the only child in this foster
I
care.
was the only
So
child in this
the man wouldn't speak to you, and the woman kind of used you as an inappropriate companion, it sounds like.
right. And it's very interesting because I got a redacted report from social services. That's basically how they couched it too, that it was an inappropriate companionship for this old woman.
They saw that.
They saw that, and apparently they jerked me from that home and put me in another foster situation. I don't remember the transition from this first home that I remember to the second. I just, it's almost like, you're looking at a movie and you just kind of drop into a place. It seems like I was just dropped into this new place
Yeah.
because I don't remember the transition. I don't remember any of that. And I guess
Probably to protect you. Your mind does that,
yeah,
as
it's
a
probably one of
child.
those adverse childhood experiences that you have, and your mind doesn't want to remember. So I remember being in this next home where the situation was, I don't want to say worse, but it wasn't any better. There was a family, a gentleman, a woman, his wife, and then they had an older son who was he was in high school, that I do know. And then there was a family who lived in that home, because it was a huge home, huge house, and they had space for anybody
Mm-hmm.
who would be there. And this is when I really began to understand. I don't know if I was understanding, but I knew I deserved more care than I was getting,
Mm-hmm.
because they really didn't take care of me as a probably now 5-year-old.
Mm.
I basically took care of myself. I did what I needed to do. Um,
Were they just neglectful and cold,
yeah,
or yeah? God.
yeah, kind of. Yeah, yeah, they were.
Gosh, it sounds just so, those first few years, so isolating and lonely and
Very isolating, very lonely.
scary, probably scary as a
But
young
the thing
child.
is, I was so young, and I guess I had been so independent that I
Mm.
didn't even know I was to be scared.
Mm,
You know,
which
uh,
is so sad in itself, isn't it?
it's very saddening.
Yeah,
And now that you
like an
look back
adult.
and
Yeah.
looking at how protective we are of our kids
Oh
these
my
days.
gosh. I was
So,
thinking while you're telling this, I literally was picturing my son walking up the little street, holding his hand to go to kindergarten. How protective, how scared, and just people being like, well, you're on your own. You're 5 and
and to
you're just
go
here because of whatever.
right, and to go with that, Louise, I walked to school by myself every day, got
Mm,
home by myself every day, and school wasn't around the street. It was probably about 8 blocks away.
yeah, you're little.
And I'm little. And
Mm,
but again, I did not know I was supposed to be scared.
yeah.
And I know there was a higher power taking care of me. I, soon came to realize that, I was not the sole person here taking care of me in this journey. And I don't remember, it's, I was telling some friends not too long ago. I don't remember anybody really, calling my name. I didn't know I had a birthday.
Mm,
Mm.
But just,
Oh my gosh.
just basic things that kids know. I had no idea. I was just existing in this space. But the lucky thing for me is I had a really good social worker. And I truly believe, now that I understand the
mhm.
system a little bit better, my best friend is a social worker. And so I understand that even though you may be in a situation, if you have a really good social worker, they are always working on your behalf. And things don't always fall into place, in that time that you would want it to,
Mhm.
because it takes time to find the right family. It takes time to find the right fit
Yeah.
for a kid, right? And so now, as I look back over this, I always believe that that is what she was doing, trying to find the right fit for me. So the time did come for her to find that fit. And I will never forget, it was actually the last day of school when I was in first grade. And I remember her coming to the foster home that day and asking me if I wanted to go to lunch with her. Now, mind you, I really hadn't been much further than my school. I didn't know people went out to lunch. I didn't know, I had to see
Yeah.
my city. And
I
so
have
of
a
course,
quick
I
question. Were
decided,
both of these foster families white families?
no, they're both
Okay.
black.
Okay.
Mm,
These were black families.
Hmm.
Um, I had never, really been outside of my community. And so when I was asked if I wanted to go to lunch, that was the best thing.
scary.
Yeah, yeah, but it was like,
Fun.
Yeah.
I get to ride in a car and go somewhere.
Oh,
So she told me to go upstairs and freshen up, and I did that as best I could. I come back downstairs, and we go into downtown Richmond, and we go to the Trailways bus station. And that's where we had lunch, because this is back in the 60s. And so there were very few places in the city of Richmond at the time that
yeah.
people could come, people who look like me could come or go and sit down and have lunch comfortably.
Gosh.
And so that's where we end up going. And so we end up at a table with this really nice, established couple. And they were just as happy as they could be. They were smiling and just seemed like they were just in bliss for whatever reason. I have no idea why. And I kept thinking, why are these people so happy? And so I'm assuming, and all of this is in my book because my book is a memoir and I kind of tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
But they just I can just see them, she's, just beautiful, and beautiful green and white jacket dress. It's in June and it's hotter than fire in Richmond that weekend, that day. And he has on a white work suit, but it was crisp, pressed to perfection. And they're just smiling and enjoying their lunch. And I am just fascinated because I'm out, with all these people around, and you could tell people were enjoying each other, the company of one another. You know how we do it with food.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm playing with the condiments on the table. Like, I just remember that. And the adults are talking, but I'm none the wiser about what this conversation is about, but I can still see that they are just happy to be in this space. So, of course, lunch is now over, and the adults, exchange goodbyes and whatever. And so as we're walking back, when we get to the car, the social worker says to me, she said, "Did you like those people?" And I was like, "Yeah, they were nice, nice." And she said, "Well, that's your new mommy and daddy." And I'm like, "What? Whoa, really?" She said, "When you get home, I want you to gather everything you have, and you're going to live with them today." And
Huh.
so I go, and I don't have much. I have this little red baby carriage that was given to me by someone else at this foster home. And the few things that I had, I put in that baby carriage. And the family that I was living, they had a big foyer, because as I said, the house was, a huge home, so they had a huge foyer. In that foyer was a piano that I was never allowed to play. And so this particular day, I guess since I was leaving, I was allowed to sit on the stool and play the piano if I wanted to. In my mind, well, I hadn't played it up until now. I don't play it at this point. I'm just waiting for Miss Belchers, who was my social worker, to come, and then I can be out. I can be gone.
How is the family acting? Just like, oh wow.
Oh, kind of, oh well.
Have a nice life.
But there was no conversation with me about,
Oh,
"We're sorry to see you go."
That's just so clearly but no adults were really, it sounds like in both of your situations, were ever taught any
No.
ways to deal with a child in trauma.
Right. And so the social worker shows up, and I go to my new home, my adoptive home. And that's kind of where my journey, really, really begins. And I've learned so much from listening to your podcast about the journey of adoption,
yeah.
because it's such, well, I've always known this, but I think your podcast has allowed me to learn that it is a lonely journey, because nobody knows these stories but those of us who've been here. And when you talk to other people about them, they will listen to you, but they have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Especially those who have been in what we would call normal situations. No situation is really normal, but what we would think and what society thinks
Yeah.
I mean,
is.
and almost when you do talk to people who haven't been in our situation,
Mhm.
there's always this, at least in my situation with with some people I know where it's just they feel like, well, just
Get over.
now you have a good life. Get over those
Right.
feelings.
It is. That is exactly how people react. And you don't want to be insensitive to them because we on this side know that they don't have a clue.
Right.
Yeah.
So
At all.
at all.
Just
And so it's no need trying to help them understand because they never will. They never will.
Rita, can I ask you a question? Did you
Sure.
stay close with Mrs. Belcher?
Yeah, she would come by because one of the things, as we know, as adoptees, they're always dropping in,
Mm-hmm.
make sure that everything is going well and the family is living up to their end of the bargain as to how they said they were going to raise this kid. And so, yeah, she stayed in touch. As a matter of fact, I saw her. I taught school for a little while, and I was a physical education teacher, and I was out on a outside with my kids doing class one day, and she drives up in the state car to come check on one of her kids that is now in her care. And I was so shocked, but so glad to see her because I was glad for her to see me
Yeah.
at this point in my life, that she had done a good thing by um, moving me to the family that she did. They did very well by me, although there were some challenges, but as my book outlines, I was determined, and life is an imperfect journey of learning and love. And I had, moved through and was doing quite well. And I was so glad for her to be able to see that because I think most social workers do not see their kids that they had at 5, 6, 7 to 9 years
I'm
old
sure.
as adults.
And not every social worker is her, right? So
No,
it's
they're not. No, they're not.
as we've learned too. So it's I just like that. I mean, I don't know that she cared. I mean, she's really, you could have still been in that first home if she had just negated it.
Right. Or left me there. I don't even know
Yeah.
what that situation would have grown into. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for
You
sure.
don't know.
That's just weird, that first situation. And the second situation too, I'm guessing their motivation for fostering was money.
It was I think so
Yeah.
too.
I'm
I think
assuming.
I think there are quite a few fosters
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
are about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very bitter, honestly. I have always been bitter about that second foster situation because in my mind it was how dare they treat a young child that
Yeah.
way? How do you neglect a
Mhm.
young child that way?
Yeah.
You made the decision to bring this child into your home. And
And you clearly have a nice home and could provide and be loving, but you're choosing not to.
choosing not to. But then you all have helped me in ways that you will never know because there's so much that I have learned. And then when you introduced the primal wound to me, the book,
Yeah.
I've learned so much from that. And so I've learned to temper my anger and my bitterness because now I understand that they just didn't know how to work that out. They didn't know how to do that because there was no training as to, if it was probably minimal as to how you should um, take care of a foster kid because it's very different from your, because there are needs that we have that your biological kids would not have. And
Mhm.
they had no idea how to address that. They probably didn't even know it needed to be addressed. And so it has helped me, the making of me has helped me to heal in some ways that I didn't even know I needed healing from.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Same for us. We started and had never read a book and
Mhm.
No.
bought into the whole societal narrative of
Right.
adoption being such a wonderful thing and
Mhm.
and then, going through this process, we too have been minds open
Yeah.
and blown.
Yeah, and I so appreciate it because I found you all on a whim. Honestly,
Ooh, what was that whim?
I just got in my car one day. I don't even know where I was going, but I didn't want to listen to music. And I said, oh, a podcast. But I didn't want to go to my regular podcast, and something just said, look up adoption.
Mm.
Typed in adoption, and the making of me showed up. And I'm like, oh, I want to know about me. Let's see what they talking about.
I want to know
You
about
know?
me.
And then,
We wanted to know about us too at the
you know,
beginning.
and I just clicked on, I don't, I just clicked on a, a podcast. And I love the way that you all um just lay it out there, what it is, how it is, um, educating us as adoptees and foster care kids about why we are the way we are, why we think the way we think, why we react to things the way that we
Yeah.
do, why many of us have abandonment issues, why many of us are people pleasers, all of those things that you just think is you.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you realize, well, it might be you, but if you in another situation, that might not be the you,
Yeah.
you
I was
know?
talking about this last night with some people. What if I were in a different situation? Who would I have been? Who would have Sarah been? Who would you be? I mean, because we do take all that on. We didn't, Sarah and I are the same as you. We came through this with you. So
Mhm. Yeah. So I've been so appreciative, and it got to the point where every time I got in my car, that's what I listened to, because it was wonderful hearing other people's stories, the things that I could relate to, the things that helped me understand to almost to my core as to the whys of some things. Why
Mm-hmm.
my mother, my adoptive mother and I struggled so much, because she wanted so much for me to just absolutely love her unconditionally and all of that. And, I was trying, but I couldn't trust that.
And had
And
she been the couple, I'm guessing there were no other kids in that house.
not at
You
that
were,
time when I came, no.
had they done any reading on their own
I have,
about adoption,
I
or,
have no idea. I have
and
no,
did they have infertility issues?
they did.
Mm.
They did. And I have a friend who's adopted, and he and I have put our heads together, and we think that his parents convinced my parents to get me.
That's
So
what happened to my scenario. My mom parents knew someone who had adopted a child, and she's like, "You should adopt."
yeah,
So,
that's what
that's
we think. I
interesting.
mean, we could be so off, but that's what we think. And we both turned out well, so it's all good. But I tried, but she and I really struggled, and
Yeah.
I
Just naturally. It's just a natural
yeah.
struggle.
And I learned from you all how, because my father and I just hit it off the bat
Yeah.
from the beginning, but she and I, I learned to love her. But I think also she was very hard on me, because she wanted me to be this perfect kid. And I'm so far from that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Then and now. So,
didn't anyone ever tell her perfect is the enemy of good?
so she just, wanted, and she had a type A personality, and
Yeah.
everything was, you know, and that was so not me. And so I had to sort of conform to how she wanted me to be. And that was a struggle as a growing kid. You
Yeah.
need to kids do need boundaries. Trust and believe me, they do. But sometimes you have to let them be who they are and who
Yeah.
they are innately supposed to be. And I think she was trying to, I think she saw me as clay and tried to mold every bit of who I needed to be. And not that I don't want to use the word rebelled, but there was pushback.
Yeah.
That's the word I'll use. There was pushback. And so that was how we struggled.
Do you find yourself in your adult life? I'm speaking because you're touching on something I feel the same with. Do you
Yeah.
find that you'll still do things where you're like, oh, I'm still, making
You
sure
know
things
it.
are just so
Yeah. Yeah. And
you can't
and it's
help it.
you can't because it's
No.
instilled in you.
Yeah.
Had since after I wrote my book, I have had friends, my best friend, and when I moved to my adoptive parents' home, she was like my next door neighbor. And the way our block was set up, she actually lived behind me, the way the neighborhood is set up. But she was the closest home to me. And she said, Rita, I've been knowing you all my life, but now I really know you. Now I
Yeah.
understand you. And when your friends tell you that, it's like, oh,
I have a friend that says that too, that listens to
really?
Sarah and I, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, this just makes sense." And she's from a
Yeah.
big family that all were
Mhm.
close, and
Right, right. So, so it's still a learning
it
experience. It's
is.
still times of hurt, times of pain. Um,
So when did they adopt more kids? Is that what
they,
happened?
they adopted a daughter. You're gonna love this. So I was there probably about 2.5, 3 years, and I learned that I was a very social kid. So I love being outside, being with the kids. Da, da, da. So it's in the middle of winter. It's cold as I don't know what, probably snow on the ground, and I'm bored and I'm lonely. And my mom is sitting in the kitchen, and I go in and I said, I want a sister. And she's reading the paper. And she's just like, okay, whatever. And then I think about a year later, the sister shows up. And I was like, I didn't really want a sister. I was just bored that day.
Who's this?
Right. But the thing was, they didn't tell me she was coming.
Oh, it's so weird.
And and they were, and I understand they were so protective of me, and they didn't want anybody to kind of enter into my world that would taint me in any way. I understand that. But sometimes protection can be to a fault.
Mm.
Because now, as I'm still trying to embrace this new mom and dad in another kind of way, but I'm making further progress with him than her. Now I have a little sister that I have to embrace and learn to
And
embrace.
how old was she when she came into the house?
She had just turned 3.
Oh,
So you're about
little.
9 at this point,
Yeah.
maybe? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was difficult because we were so far apart in age. It was hard for us to kind of meld together as sisters
Mhm.
because we
Mm.
didn't have much in common because of the age gap. But I learned how to manage that, but it still took some time. It took a long time, actually.
Did she stay with them throughout her
Mhm.
life? Okay.
Yeah.
And were
Yeah.
you both officially adopted by the family?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're sisters now, good friends now. She
Oh,
has
that's nice.
4 beautiful kids who I love dearly. They love Aunt Rita dearly. So, we're good. But it took some time to get to that. Because it started off in my mind a little rocky because I wish I had a heads up as
Mm-hmm.
Rita, this is what's happening. And I should have known something was happening because the Christmas before, I got a new bedroom suite. I got a twin bed set, and which was cool. I'm getting new furniture, yay! But I didn't know that I had to share that with
Right.
somebody
You're
in a
thinking
couple of
that's
months.
for your
Yeah,
friends to come
I'm like,
over.
we got a little sleepover. And but I did not
It's
know
it's
that
kind
we
of
would do that.
another example of just being what's the word I'm looking for? Invalidated as a person or
Yeah.
Yeah.
just not considered,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I think that's because not that I would have had a problem with it. I don't think that at all. Because in my head, it would be, I would have had the sister that I kind of asked for, but I would have known she was coming. I could have prepared for her mentally, physically, emotionally,
Yeah.
but I didn't have the opportunity to do that. And I think Sarah, I think in a way, I probably was hurt because I was old enough and mature enough to have been able to accept what they told me in regards to that. But they didn't see that in me.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Because keep in mind, I was already far beyond my years because I had been my own caregiver in a sort of kind of way, as a
Mm-hmm.
young kid. So I could manage some things that maybe other 9-year-olds couldn't, but I think I could have. But they didn't trust, I guess is the word, that I would be able to do that. And
It's so fragile. Like kids are just, the opportunity, like whatever adults want to do upon them is done. It's just,
yeah. And keep in mind, I grew up in a time where kids were seen and not heard.
yeah,
Right.
So in their minds, they didn't have to discuss it with me.
Yeah,
right.
this is the way it is.
You know, we don't have to talk to you about that. And in some ways, I'm glad times have changed about that, because I think when the family dynamic changes, the young ones need to know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because in some ways, well, I'm not going to say it affects them more, but it certainly affects them differently. And whatever trajectory they may be on at that time, doing something that drastic
Mhm.
can change it in a very different direction that you don't want it to go. And it is so hard to get them back on track, because they begin to act out like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
many talk about, in ways that you can't understand why they're acting out. And I think I did some of that, because I remember some of my mom's and my biggest struggles and, combativeness
Mhm.
being after my sister arrived. And I think I was just angry, and I did not know, at 9, 10, 11, how to manage that. You
Yeah.
know, you just don't have those skills at that point. You didn't even know you needed those skills at that point.
No.
More or less, try to manage them and make them work for you at that time.
What
So
also, what about, did you ever find out about your biological mom?
I was,
Like,
yeah, I was gonna,
oh,
or did you ask questions about
yeah.
her throughout your childhood? Like, where do I come? Or was it just kind of not a subject that was comfortable to approach?
I think it was, I would go with a subject that was not comfortable to approach.
Mhm.
My adopted mother was always, as I said, she was very protective. She never really wanted me out of her sight. When I would go out to play, I was always to play, especially when I first went to the home. I was always to play in front of a window, in front of a door, somewhere where she could always keep her eye on me. Because this may not have been it, but I was always thinking that she was scared somebody was going to come and kidnap me,
Mhm.
which could very well have been, you know, and take me away from her, because she was, honestly, she was thrilled to have me with her. That I know. And so was my dad. They embraced us, well, me, and provided the best home that they possibly could for me, bought me the best of everything that they could afford. And my parents were older, and so they were established, and so they weren't in that early struggle time of their lives. They
Mhm.
were able to do what they needed from me, and they did. I never had a babysitter, because they always felt that, they brought me into the home. It is their responsibility to take care of me. And my mother had an aunt, who I always call grandma, because my mother's mother was deceased. And if they really had to go somewhere and I could not go, they would leave me with her. But just have, like the teenager down the street or
Yeah.
something, that
Yeah.
that never happened. No.
Boy, how'd your aunt feel about being called grandma?
Well, she was my mother's aunt.
Oh,
So she was cool
she's
with
Oh,
it.
your
she's
mother's aunt. I thought
she
it
was a
was
great.
your
Yeah.
mother's
Yeah, she
sister.
was a great
Me
aunt to
too.
me. Yeah, she was a great aunt to me. So she was cool with it. She was,
Yeah.
Okay.
because she did not have
I was thinking she was
grandchildren.
like 40 or something.
Yeah, like,
She was
boy,
probably in
that's
the 60s at that time. So and I was, the light of her eye as well. We had great times together, and she embraced me, loved me. So it wasn't for a lack of love. And that's why, the book is about, life's imperfect journey of learning and love, because you learn a lot on this journey. And
Mhm.
you don't even know that are to be learned, you learn. But it's all about love. It's all about love,
Yeah.
really, because the last, I don't call them up the stories in my books. I don't call them chapters, I call them stories, because they're just little short stories that I'm telling. But the last one is about, it's not about the blood, it's about the love.
Mhm.
Because we know what blood will do, right? People who we are related to by blood, they'll leave us, they'll give us away. And, other people who love us unconditionally and don't have to will take us in, raise us, and make sure we become these people.
Well,
So
that leads me to another question. So Did you do ancestry or any kind of DNA thing? Like, do you know anything about your biology?
I did do ancestry, and I have lots of what seem to be third, fourth, fifth cousins. I did have a gentleman to reach out to me in 2017 to say that I was a second or third cousin to him. And we had a conversation and we talked because he was looking into the genealogy of the family. And so I asked him to look up the last name that I had before I was adopted, to see if that fell in the family line. And he did not see it. So, and we corresponded by text for a couple of times after that, but then he just sort of fell off the radar. And I didn't want to push or pry. So, yeah.
And were you able to get your original birth certificate or any paperwork?
No, here in Virginia, you will not get your original birth certificate. They will overlay your adoptive parents' information on that original birth certificate.
Yeah, well, I think they do that in every state. You get, you have your fake birth certificate with and then you have
the new people.
then you have right, and then you have your
Yeah.
original birth certificate. Are you not allowed to get your original birth certificate in Virginia? There's still quite a few states where you can't, but lots of people working to change that.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that because I also reached out to the State Department of Social Services that hold all the documents and whatever, and asked if I could get, documents on my adoption or my birth parents and, anything that had to do with me in that situation. And they were like, sure, come on in. And I was so excited because I was like, oh, I'm going to find out who Rita is. The making of me. I'm gonna find out
right. The making of Rita.
So I go, I sit in this little room, these two women come in and they open up this folder and they show me this paper that they have taken an X-Acto knife and cut out. They've redacted everything that could
You'd
be
need to know.
to me. So I have no names, no localities, schools, everything that would have given me any inkling of knowing who I am, who I actually came from, was redacted from the document. So that was hurtful, and that shut me down for a long time. Because
it's so, we know this, we do this weekly, but it still is, we're second-class citizens in that way. You cannot know about yourself. We are going to keep your information. It's beyond. And you were passed around through foster care. It's like, come on,
right?
Give me my information. This is me,
right? And as you get older, you really want to know your biological history because
and health history, by the way, even if you even if say a person I don't really want to meet my birth, but health history is our right to know. It's just. So yes, there are people fighting for it, but obviously it's not happening everywhere yet.
No.
And it makes it it's not even difficult for me anymore. For a while early on, when you go to the doctor and they want to know about your health history, there's only so much you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to reveal the why. And I think healthcare providers are more sensitive to that situation now than they have been in the past. But it's still, it still brings to the forefront of your mind that there are things about you internally, health-wise, that you have no idea about. And you can just, hope, pray that you stay healthy.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I found out recently I was born with 60 or 70% kidney capacity.
Yeah.
Just found that out. Like,
really?
My whole life.
I like to tease her about it, by the way, which I know is not nice.
She teases me about my tiny kidney and my trip to the bathroom.
She's like, I don't know why I have to go again. I'm like, because you have a tiny kidney.
Yes.
We need to nurture.
Yes. But there's things like that that
you'll never. Yes.
And well, for many of us will never know.
No.
So you did your aunt, so there, you have nothing, you know, nothing about your birth mother. It only whatever story you might have been told, which you said at the beginning of this talk,
Mhm.
you think you were with her for 6 months and then she gave you up, but
Right.
you don't know that for sure.
Mhm.
Um,
That's the other story that, I tell, well, not tell, but, if I'm with friends, oh, yeah, usually friends, you don't just put this out there to anybody, but I say it's really weird, living in this world and no one related to you by blood.
Yeah.
No
It's a
one.
strange feeling.
It's a
Mhm.
very strange feeling. And I struggle honestly with observing families.
Mm.
One of my best,
painful.
it
Is
is
it painful? Yeah.
very painful. One of my best friends lost her father. And of course, she's my best friend. And so on the day of the funeral, we're kind of family too. And so me and my girls, we show up. And I'm looking, and it's a huge family. And I'm looking around the room. I can see how everybody is related in some way. They either look alike, walk alike, have same mannerisms, all of the things that we don't know anything about. And I was glad to see the family. Sorry, daddy died, but glad to see the family and everybody there. But for me to watch that and not be privy to any of that was painful. It was very painful.
I remember sitting in my friend's kitchen growing up, and my mom would say, "Why are you over there so much?" I'd always want to go over. They had
Mhm.
9 children. She was the youngest of 9, and just watching everyone, not knowing what I know now,
Right.
but I was fascinated. I would just stare and be so like absorbed in it, almost like I just wanted to be a fly on the wall. I didn't want to
Right.
even anyone to talk to me. I just wanted to watch, and
Right.
that's that thing.
And that's one of the things I've learned from you all, where um, families, they fit.
Mm-hmm.
They're part of one of the talks I give is about the puzzled family and how we as adoptees a lot of times have to make our own families, and we have to figure out what part they play or what piece they are and how they fit in our lives. But in biological families, it just happens.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody just kind of fits. And that's always fascinating to me to see the fit of families,
Yeah.
how they just drop in place wherever they're supposed to be, regardless of what their role is in that family. You could.
And people who haven't been through what what we've been through, I observe float comfortably, more comfortably through life with that, does that make sense? Like
It makes a lot
there's
of
more of
sense.
an ease,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, which I know I lack. I don't ever really quite feel comfortable anyway. I with my biological family when I'm with them, which is very, very rare, I
Mm-hmm.
do feel that. And with my friends that I've chosen to make a family with.
Right.
But otherwise I feel removed in from life in a weird way.
Yeah. But you make it work.
Mm-hmm.
You make it work, but you're never planted well.
Right.
It's kind of like you're in
It's a good way to put it.
the temporary pot that you have your plants in, and before they get to that permanent home, it's like we're always in that temporary plot.
Yeah.
That's where we're
I
planted.
heard a good analogy the other day from I randomly met an adoptee the other night and we were talking about it and he likened it to you're always the water boy and not on the team.
Team.
Oh, that's good.
I thought that's a great analogy and I'm going to use it. It's
Yeah.
But we're good water boys, right?
good,
Yeah, very
because we have to please
pleasing.
everyone.
Good
Makes sure
water
everyone's
boys.
happy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Everybody's hydrated when they're supposed to be. Yeah,
Rita,
so
are your adoptive parents still alive?
no, they both passed away within 3 years of each other.
Mm.
And one of the things I also need to tell you is that my adoptive mother had a massive, well, I guess a massive stroke when I was 14.
Mm.
And so therefore she became an invalid. And so now, not only am I trying to, I'm going into high school. I was going into the ninth grade because it happened the summer before I went into the ninth grade. I have a young sister, I'm trying to navigate this new teenage life, right?
Wow.
And then my mom is sick. And so now I have to take on the role of taking care of family. So when I get home from school every day, I'm cooking dinner, once a week or however, whatever the schedule was, I'm sitting with her on her bed, writing bills. I'm doing all the things that a mother would do
Yeah.
because she no longer is able to do that. And
You
so
always had to be the adult.
I did. I did. I did. I had a friend, I saw this guy I went to high school with. And this is years later. I am working somewhere in the community and I see him and we were just talking. He was looking at me. I was like, why are you looking at me like that? He said, you know what, Rita, you have always been grown. You have
Ah,
always been an adult. And
Always.
he was like, yeah. He said, you've always been grown. I was like, okay. And I didn't know how to take that at the time. I thought it was, and I know it was a compliment coming from him, but now I understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
Because I did always have to be beyond my years in doing something, taking care, whatever. And it in a way it helps, but it also can be difficult because it makes you way more independent sometimes than you really
Yeah.
for your good. Because you don't know how to ask for help.
Yeah.
Because you're so used to getting it done, or either if you ask for the help and the help doesn't show up when you need it to or as quickly as you need it to, you're going to jump in and do it.
Yeah.
Which can cause issues, because you ask somebody else to do it, and just because they didn't get to it when you thought they should do it, because you want it done. So, but I'm learning how to manage still, all of that.
I hope that you find your biology just to know. Would Mrs. Belcher know anything?
No, and probably at this point, Ms. Belcher's probably not with us anymore, but
Right.
I would look into that. But I know she's long retired if she is here with us.
I do think there are ways you can petition to get your information.
Yeah, and I probably will do that.
I'm trying to think of, and also we know search angels that are so good at what they
Oh
do.
my
They
God,
could
they're
go
so
in,
good.
look at your DNA and really track down. So if you want to do something like that,
I'll let you.
later email us and let us know and we'll
Okay.
connect you. Because
Okay.
I mean, this doesn't have to be a blank slate. There are ways to find out
Ways.
who you are. Yes.
Yeah, and I at this point I think I not only want to but need to, and
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I'm
very
still
grounding.
yeah, and that's and I don't know if yeah, grounding is a better word than closure because it's not about closing
Mm-mm.
anything, but it's about kind of again planting yourself firmly,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, emotionally, you know. Um,
And there may be relatives. This is what I found. My biological mom passed when I was young, so I can't know her. But there's relatives who I didn't realize it does ground you. It makes you feel you can't replace those years. They wouldn't know you, but there may be someone going, "Oh my God, I have a sister or a cousin I want to know."
and I would believe that.
I
And
believe that too. I believe there's
have
bigger than
to.
just your mom out there, right? So you don't know.
But here's something really, really funny. I'm embarrassed about this in a way. Okay, so my entire life, I've always focused on my birth mother, right?
Yeah, I was like that.
And one day I was like, you had a father too, right?
Right.
So it was like I hadn't given that man a thought, but it came to me, she didn't do this by herself. This
And
is
they
actually
sometimes turn out to be amazing. They
right,
do.
right. And so, um, but I don't know why it took me so long to understand that. But then after the primal wound and you all helping me understand things, I understand the connection between infants, especially in vitro and moms. It's a totally different thing, and so you are going to be searching out who that person that you were connected to, more
Mm-hmm.
so than the person that caused the connection, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's been educational and it's been extremely helpful. And I'm just so grateful that day I got in the car and said, oh, the making of me, what's that about?
I'm so happy you did
I'm so
too.
grateful too. It's really, and I mean, this has just been such a wonderful talk, very
Yeah.
Emotional and deep.
Mhm.
And please reach out to us because we can connect you with people who could help you.
All right,
'Cause
well, we will
this is not a dead end. You haven't reached a dead end.
Agreed.
There's, you know,
Thank you.
so, and it sounds like it's important. So we're
Mhm.
happy to
Yes.
And you have
do those
friends
introductions.
in this too. We're here. So like
I
when you
thank you.
feel we
It's so
need
nice
that.
to connect with you all. It's just, and that's how, honestly, that's how I felt when I began to listen to you. That's why I became obsessed. It was like, oh my God, I have girlfriends that know what I'm talking about. I have my girlfriends who I'm talking to me and they look at me like I'm an alien. What is Rita talking about? So so
You
I
know
just
what's
appreciate
funny
that.
is that we're talking about all this and I wouldn't, you know how you look back at your life
Mhm.
I just turned 55, which whatever, but you think, oh, what are the years? But I wouldn't change anything because of where we're at right now.
Right,
Because Sarah and I
right.
doing this has been
I
it's
would
so
change the fact that I ever smoked cigarettes. I'll say that. I would
I didn't
change
say I
that.
wouldn't change
And I'm
something.
happy for you. I'm
But if
proud
you
of
didn't
you.
smoke cigarettes, you might not have, it's that butterfly effect.
I, I,
But
I
it's
am
kind of
proud of
like
you.
we're here. Like Sarah came to visit recently and we were together. And that's when I was thinking, oh, when she was in the house, I felt like, oh, I have family here. I
Hmm.
really felt that way. Like Sarah's our family. My husband felt it too, but it's family, right? You make your own,
Right.
but and we're meeting like I would never know you and we would never have this. And I don't know. It's
Yeah,
very there's a reason that we're all
it
tough and all that.
is. And it is a reason that I stumbled upon you because it's
Yeah.
been extremely helpful, eye-opening, and educational. And we're always about learning, regardless of
Yeah.
what the subject matter is. And so this was apparently a subject that I needed to approach and dig deeper into. And so thank you for the work that you do and for allowing voices like this to come forth and not only tell our stories, but help others out there that are in the struggle, because
Hmm.
that's what it is. It's a struggle. I mean, we
It is.
put a pretty face on it every day,
Yeah.
but in our minds and in our hearts, it's a struggle.
It is.
Oh, thank you so much for what you, I don't know how you all came to this, but I'm glad that you did.
We
So
came to it in the
thank
way
you.
Sarah and I come into things, like let's
We
delve
stumble
in.
backwards in and then we find our way.
And that's the best way because you don't have a plan, you just do it.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Ready,
Fly by
fire,
the seat of our
aim. Yeah.
pants.
Right. And it turns out the way it's supposed to,
It
just by
does.
just by
And will you
osmosis.
send us a copy of your book and sign it? Because we're
I
starting
sure
to
will.
have a really
Yeah, we are
full
collecting
collection.
the
Okay, well,
books.
you all send me your address and I will certainly do
Okay.
that.
And
Thank
we're
you.
gonna
Do
put
that
your link in your show notes and
in the
everything.
show notes. Yes.
That would be great.
Yeah. Thank you, Rita. It was
Thank
so
you.
lovely to meet you.
This
Thank
was a
you.
wonderful
Lovely
talk.
meeting you all as well. You all could take care.
You
Thank you.
too.
You
All right.
too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.